warning, this will be long. Hello, lovely people. Okay, so, sorry to get my story out there, but to also let people know there is hope out there for anybody who has either gone through this or has had a family member go through this. If you watch those past ones, yes, I'm wearing the same clothes. Don't care to change. Like, it's almost, 4 in the morning, and I just really don't care. Anyways, I wanted to talk about these past couple months. It's not a touchy subject anymore, but it still is like, it's kind of sensitive. Yeah, like, prop your feet up, get comfy, because it's a long. I'm gonna try not to use any real names of people, but I also don't want to get in trouble for anything or whatnot, because, yes, warning, I will be trash talking about a place. So, yeah, and now it all makes sense, like, once you hear my story. Anyways, again, I apologize for music. It might be really loud. Who really knows? Anyways, so, it's a long story. Trust me, and if I start crying, I'm sorry if you can't understand me too, as well. Just, whatever. Just bear with me, please. So, I don't know where to start, actually. Because, like I said, it's pretty long. And it's still kind of going on, too. So, March, my parents and okay, I'll explain. The night before, and then, come on. Well, anyways, the 23rd, I was out with my parents looking at, like, apartment, like, houses and all that junk. Anyways, so, that's just the start of them. So, we were out looking at houses, blah, blah, blah. We went to go pick up my mom's glasses, at this place, and this is where it gets touchy, just a bit, because it was kind of hard to see, but my mom was walking up the ramp. They have, like, those already, like, pre-made ramps in the concrete, and she was trying to walk up that, and all I saw was her standing there, like, just paused, and she, like, I don't know, it looked like she was saying something, and it kind of sounded like it, like, our windows were up, because it was me and my dad in the car, and our windows were up, and we couldn't really hear anything, and we heard this noise, and we're like, what is that noise, and, we could see my mom, she was kind of shaking. She's a very real diabetic, keep that in mind. So she, so we heard that noise, and we're like, what is that? And then it got louder and louder, and it was my mom, and she was calling for help. She just kept saying, help, help, and me and my dad, like, were rushed out of the car, but by the time we got there, she had already fallen down. Now, since she's a brittle diabetic, it's not funny. I'm kind of laughing to get, like, over it, and kind of, like, for myself, so that I'm not gonna cry or whatnot. And I'm also taking breaths for, like, smile. I smile a lot. Sorry, I'm a girl. I do that. But so she's fallen before. We really thought nothing of it until we got out of the car, and she had twisted her ankle almost completely around. Like, I'm not even kidding. I would show you how, but, like, I'll show you on my hand. Like, this is her ankle, and usually her feet, I've learned this story from my dad so many times, so I'm, like, copying what he's saying. It's kind of freaking me out. So her, normal people's feet are like this, like, yeah, okay. You get their feet are like this. Well, her feet are kind of inward. She kind of walks like a duck. And it's just, just bone problems and all that stuff. So, yes. So it's kind of, just something she's, you know, always had. Well, anyways, so it was her right ankle, I believe. Like, I have to visualize again, that's kind of hard. So her ankle, okay, now this will be her ankle again, because I can't really do it with this hand, but her ankle went like that. Like, this is her, you know, right ankle. This is my left hand. This will be her right ankle. It was like, you know, this, and then it went like this. Literally, you could see the bone about to pop out of the skin. And sorry if that makes you guys sick. Yeah, it was really sad. Well, before she had even gotten out of the car, I had this, like, major, you know, like, gut feeling to get out of the car and help her, but I ignored it. And it wasn't like, you know, I was being mean or anything. I didn't think anything of it. I said, no, I'm not gonna get out of the car. So that should be fine. And it was like, oh yeah, she'll be, you know, totally cool, whatever. And I regret that now. I don't really think I could have done anything to help her not fall, but I think I could have helped her more to not twist her place, and, you know, have the person call the ambulance. And luckily for us, they were literally like, because by the time they got in there and got my mom's, you know, foot situated for her to get into the ambulance, they said that she could have lost her foot, like, literally, you know. And then I talk so much, and then I, like, run it out there, and then I'm like, oh, so, yeah, sorry. But so they got her to the ambulance, or to the hospital. Me and my dad had to go back and get my sister because she was still in school at the time, and so we had to go, you know, pick her up and then take her, you know, with us to the hospital. Well, we get there, and they're, you know, getting my mom out of doing extras. She hates hospitals. She's, like, the goofiest person in the hospital, too. She'll, like, if she has to be in there, like, trust me, she's been in the hospital so many times, so it's not, like, we're not used to it or anything like that. I know, like, you guys are like, oh my gosh, it's gonna suck, and yeah, it does suck. Trust me. But well, anyways, so they get her out of x-rays, whatever. She's sitting in the bed, we're sitting with her. So the doctor comes in, and they tell us she'll need surgery. They were gonna do it that night, but they decided to wait till morning so that, you know, she could get situated. Had arrived to the hospital. The nurses there had said that they had ruined her day, and so that is one. She ruined their day by getting there, because it was like at 5, and so they were all about to leave. Well, anyways, so the nurses had come in, you know, to help fix my mom and get her situated or whatever. But the nurses who had said that comment were the ones who were in that room helping her. And my sister had brought it up, because my mom had told us, and my sister brought it back up and said, you know, the nurses were kind of mean to her, you know, just to get, you know, just to say, oh, they were being mean, can you guys, you know, not do that, whatever, can you watch out for those people? Well, we didn't know it was those people, but until they had left, and my mom was like, no, that was her that said it. Well, anyways, so, you know, the nurse said, you know, my sister said that comment, she said that no one said that, like, they flat out, just only there for a week, and we went up there, like, every day. It was a pain on the butt and a lot of gas, but, you know, it was worth it, so it was okay. Just gonna keep adjusting. So we went back the next day. My mom was awake, and she was kinda, I don't know, she's kind of being snotty and didn't want to eat nothing. She really couldn't eat anything either, because they had her on so many drugs and they didn't want her to, like, choke on something or do whatever, so she really only was allowed to have soup. And this was, like, for the first 2 days or whatever. And so we had her the next day. Oh, and they had also told us the day that she went into the hospital that, you know, they were going to do the surgery, and then she was going to do rehab, you know, right away, but they never did, like, at all, within the week that she was there. And I know a week sounds like, you know, a lot, but not a lot, and I'm getting to it. I'm just gonna say, just wait, everything's coming, you know, just be patient with me. Anyways, third day, I guess they got her to sit in a chair. We don't really know how she got there, but she had no IV, and I don't think was on anything, and like I said, she's a very brittle diabetic, and she has this insulin pump, and she had not had insulin that we know of for 3 days. Now that is bad. So I don't know what her sugars were like or anything like that, but I know they weren't good. Because that third day, she just started refusing food. She wasn't completely refusing it, but she was refusing it. You know, she'd taken a bite of burger, but that was it. Like, that was her only meal. And that day, they wanted to send her home. Well, she just, you know, and, you know, my dad freaks out about that stuff, and he, you know, even I agreed, though, she was not ready to come home. Like, she needed a full week in the hospital, which she really didn't get. I think she went in there, I would say she went in there on, whatever, you know, day the 23rd is, until the next Wednesday. Now this was a Monday that they wanted to send her. Wanted to send her across the street, so we wanted to send her across the street, you know, because our house is here and it's right across the street, so it was easy, you know, transportation for us. It was great for all of us, and it's a great place. It's a rehab place. Anyways, so we wanted to send her across the street, but they didn't have a bed open until Wednesday. So we just asked the hospital, you know, if they could take her, or if they could, you know, take her 2 other days and then send her over there. That was not a big deal. I don't know. I know Tuesday I don't know. See, because we didn't see her Tuesday. We only saw her Wednesday after that. You know what? Anyways, so on Wednesday, they moved her over to the place across the street. Like I said, so they sent her over there, and within that time, like I said, she had no insulin, she had no, you know, insulin, I know it's not a portable thing, but I don't think they had given her any insulin. She hadn't had any food. We know that for sure because those nurses told us anyways. And she didn't have an IV in, which is really bad, you know, with her not eating food, but she was also not drinking anything, so she was a bit dehydrated. Anyway, so we get her situated across the street, and the first day she was okay. She was kind of in this state where and she would like wiggle on the bed, and so she was getting really hot and that kind of stuff. We thought she would just calm down, but she didn't. Sorry. Anyways, and so yeah, so I don't know, I forget what happened that first day. Like, can we get you to eat? Can we get you to drink? Can we get you to do this? I took that back. She was there for 4 days. I think. I'm real bad. She was almost like in a dream state, you know, like if you sleep, when you first go to sleep and you feel like you're flying, it was kind of like that. She wasn't screaming. I will get to that in just a minute too. But she was acting like that, kind of. Like when you just shake, but she was shaking like that. So okay, so the third day, she started screaming, and we were like, what? They still, we, you know, wanted her mother to talk to her, because, you know, her mother hadn't talked to her for a while, so we called her mom, and, you know, she kept saying, I want my mommy, because I had talking to her, you know, her mother, you know, while she was still in the hospital, and I said, yeah, she fell down, she hurt herself, you know, explaining what went on, and I mentioned something to my mom about calling her, and she just kept saying, I want my mommy, like, right afterwards. And we're like, okay, so we called her, she talked to her for, like, like 2 minutes. I was there while she, talked to her, and then she just stopped. And I had to pick up the phone and say, yeah, she was just something's just wrong with her. And then I hung up. Well, anyways, so I had left, and then went back the next day. That day, she was refusing everything, from water to eating to taking her medicine, which she's got so, many pills and stuff. She didn't take them at all during the hospital. I think she may have taken them the second day she was in the hospital, but not anytime afterwards. So I think it was almost a week she hadn't had her medicine, which was really horrible. Well, anyways, so no medicine, no, anything like that. And it was really, it was getting really bad, and the shaking got worse, like even more worse. Like it was kind of like she was running a marathon, because her face, she was really sweaty, she was really hot, it was just really bad. And then she started, saying she wanted her mommy, but then she started doing these like little yells. I would do it, but I don't want to, hurt anyone's ears or anything. Like, they were really bad, and it wasn't a yell, but it was like a shriek almost. And so she was doing that, and then one second, I'm gonna turn off my music. She's just refusing everything, and then she's shrieking, and she's still kind of like in a panic attack. And she was acting like a 4-year-old, pretty much. She just like a 4-year-old who doesn't clear away. And then, so that night, we talked it over with the nurses, and we're like, if she doesn't stop, and even they said if she doesn't stop, they're gonna have to send her, back to the hospital or whatever. Well, the nurse gave her this shot in her leg of some medicine that I guess knocked her out so she could sleep. And they said, well, maybe this will work. So if it didn't work, they would send her to the hospital. If it did work, they would keep her and see what they could do. So they gave it to her. She's good for the night. Like, my dad was there when they gave it to her, I guess. They said she was, shaking, and then all of a sudden just stopped and went to sleep. And it was really scary. So she wakes up the next day, and all that stuff happened again, but it was even worse. Like, I know I'm not making it sound, like, I'm making it sound like she's, like, almost in an earthquake, and she's, like, screaming so loud, but it's not like that. It's more like, again, she was running in, a marathon, but it was just more, I don't know, sorry if you don't understand. Anyways, so that day they sent her to a hospital, but we didn't like how the first hospital treated her. We kind of, like, at that point, we thought that they had something to do with this, and they pretty much did. They treated my mother horribly, and, they treated her horribly since, like I said, since she got in there, when they said they had ruined her, or she had ruined their day, and so we didn't like them, so we sent her to another hospital that was a bit further, not too much further, but it was like, so it wasn't, it was like a 5-minute difference by car, not that big of a deal. So we sent her to the other hospital, and the reason we didn't send her over there in the first place is, like, they just kind of have bad reputation. They did. When I was younger, they did. They were, like, really scummy and not good and whatnot, but this time they were really good. So they sent her, and they have her in the emergency room, and we're back there with her, and she's literally screaming. Like, we're diagrams, my hands. Her room, or, they have, the emergency room beds in one area, and then, okay, so, I don't know if I can do this right. Anyways, so this is the emergency room bed area, and then right here was the nurse's station, and then right here, was a bathroom, which I had to use. I had to use the facilities, okay? Anyways, so from that bathroom, I could hear her screaming, like, it was that loud. We tried to calm her down. She didn't like anybody, like, she didn't even like my dad, trying to hold her hand, trying to kiss her on the forehead, trying to do anything. Like, she basically didn't know we were there. She thought we were strangers for the most part. Yeah, it was bad. So then doctors come in, and they'd never seen anything like that she was doing at the moment. You know, they really didn't know what was going on. It was kind of hard to explain what was going on because we didn't know what was going on either. And then, you know, they said they would get her situated and wanted to come back later. So we go back around like 8 a.m. Put her in the ICU, or I guess it's called the ICU, the NICU basically, but because and they had just remodeled and so everything was changing. Well, anyways, so it was the ICU basically, and they get her in there, and they tell us that she has DKA, which is Diabetic Ketoacidosis, if I'm correct. And it's basically, actually I'm not going to explain, you guys can just look it up online. And yeah, we'd never heard of it. My mom had never gone through it, so we, you know, just didn't know of it. Anyway, so they had her hooked up to IVs. She took in like 2.5 to 3 IV bags in less than like an hour. Seriously, she was that dehydrated. I don't know. I guess that, yeah, that's what. So she was still screaming. You know, we were kind of like, there would be a point where if it was really quiet, she'd still kind of, she'd go, ah, and then she'd just stop really quick, and then she'd do it again, and then stop. And it was kind of like she was calming down from it, but she was like, you know, it's still happening. So we left her that night and let the doctors do their thing. We went up there every day. It seemed like we did. It was every day to every other day. It was a long experience. She was in this hospital for, I want to say about, if my timing is correct, about 4 weeks. No, I want to say about, yeah, 3 to 4 weeks. She'd been in there a total, or she'd been, you know, sick for a total of, I'm gonna say 5 weeks. You know, up until the point she got out of the hospital. The second hospital, I believe. It was either 5 to 6 weeks. Something of that sort. But so we went up there the next day. She was doing kind of better, not really. Yeah. Anyways, so throughout that expansion of time, because I'm not gonna explain everything, like I said, she went into DKA. So she had no insulin, she had no medicine, they had stuck a feeding tube in her. The doctors even really said she was really, really sick, and, you know, really, you could look at her and she was just super sick. I forget, I guess DK affects your lungs, so she had trouble breathing, so she was on a BiPAP machine, which is, it's like an oxygen machine. It is an oxygen machine. It's not the one that they stick in your nose, but it goes over your face like this, and it just, you know, gives you air. And you have a tube in your mouth as well. I think she had a tube. Yeah, she had a tube in her mouth too, because it had to go, you know, like that. And then she had the feeding tube in her nose. Let's try to think. Anything between that. But this, this hospital she was at, they were really nice to her. Obviously they have to be more considerate because she was in the ICU more, but her doctors were really nice, and they helped us, understand things more better and stuff like that. And so she was on the BiPAP machine, and then I don't know if she went on another, she went on another machine. No. I know, she had something else go on. Anyways. So, pneumonia is so bad anyways. Again, if you don't understand, like, if you don't know what these things are, just look them up. I mean, I'll try to explain them the best I can. If you ask me in the comments, I'll explain more. But so she had gotten pneumonia, and then her lung had collapsed. One of her lungs had collapsed, and so they had to put her on life support, and that was really rough. She was hooked up to so many tubes. She, cause she already had her IVs, and she had, yeah, I'll get to that part of it. They do more, needles in her, to check stuff and whatever. Let me explain what else she went through. So she was on the BiPAP machine. She had pneumonia. Her lung had collapsed. She had a blood clot in her arm, and I think in her leg too. I want to say that's it. And then, and then on life support. So she was on life support first. They had a Picc line. Like I said, a Picc line it's basically a line. It really is. It's just a line that they put into your, into wherever they need to, so that they are able to get out blood, so they can do blood tests, or they can, do whatever they need. So they put a Picc line in her chest, right here, because I couldn't put it in her. She had it in her right arm, or her left arm, I believe. See, I'm kind of bad with directions, or with, sense of direction or whatever, so I'm kind of like, I don't really remember. I think it was her left arm. Her left arm was, I guess as big as mine looks on the camera, or is actually bigger than my arm. It was a bit bigger than my arm. It wasn't too much bigger, but it was a bit bigger than my arm. And it was only that arm, well, and then her other arm was too, but it was only swollen to a certain point, like, on her arm. I think it was swollen up here, but not down here, so it kind of looked weird. But her whole left arm was completely swollen, like, hand and everything. So they couldn't do anything with that. They had to give her, sounds like I'm getting choked up. I'm really not, I'm just, my voice is going out. They had given her blood, like a blood thinner. They also had to give her blood as well, and then the life support. So she had the tube in her nose for her feeding. I think she may or may not have had another. No, she only had the feeding tube in her mouth, or in her nose. She, had her Picc line, which they eventually had to move to her neck so they could get like a better angle, I guess, of it. That's also where they would put her medicines, like they would crush them and then stick it, in there. They would stick it through her feeding tube as well. And then she had, tubes all in her mouth, just, having to have her breathe. Well, within the next couple weeks or whatever, when she was doing really good, she was doing so good in there. She had stopped screaming, she had stopped shaking, her blood, or her heart rate was, high, but it was doing really good. Her sugars were good, her blood sugars, everything was good. Like, we were getting incredible news, and then, when we heard about, her getting pneumonia, that was one of the, setbacks, and then she'd go good again. So it was like, she'd do good for like a week, and then another week, do really bad, and then the next week, do really good. But then, after she got over her pneumonia, she was doing really good. And then, all the stuff that she had going on, they had to stick a trachea in her. This is after, so they would try and take the tube out, so to see if they could breathe, she could breathe on her own. They said she could breathe on her own for maybe, like, some days it was like 30 minutes, some days maybe it was like 2 hours, and she'd do really good. But then there'd be this, I guess, she'd get really panicky, and when that would happen, or when her heart rate would go up, it would cause her so she couldn't breathe. So they put a trachea in. I guess the trachea, It's kind of like the last resort they can do, you know, before, I mean, not before, but it's the last thing they can possibly do. So they did the trachea, and she was doing fine with it, and she still had, for a couple of days, she still had the tubes in her. You know, she had the feeding tube in her for a while. That was never gonna leave, but, she, you know, had all the other tubes removed, and then she just had, a breathing mask, like, over her mouth, and, you know, for her thing. And then it was, you know, off. She was completely fine after that, and it was more of working on getting her weaned off of the trachea. Well, then she got up to this point where she could go to a rehab center, but she needed like a long-term rehab center because we didn't know how long she would be there. So we sent her to this one, so we sent her up there. She was in their ICU for a little bit. I guess when we were talking to them, just with tubes in her and, you know, just being sick. Eventually they had gotten her into her own room because that's what we wanted. She pulled out her feeding tube, and it was not good. Well, we, you know, thought it wasn't good. She didn't find. She proved to us that she could eat, and, you know, she could only eat like liquids and stuff like that, but she could eat, and she, you know, did her stuff. And yeah, this time she was like, you know, doing what she was supposed to do and was allowed to do, what she could do and whatnot. And then, so she was able to get the trachea out, which was nice, and so she just had a little, you know, a little hole. It wasn't like, it's not like, just in case you were wondering, because I wondered this too when I was there, it's not like a big hole, like a little, you know, a little hole, like, not even that big of a deal. The place across the street would take her because they didn't take trachea. They don't have the specialty to do that, or whatever, you know, the care to do that, so they wouldn't take her, but she got it out, and they were able to take her, and they had a bed, so we sent her back over there. And now she's been over there for like a week, 2 weeks, something like that, something of the sort. And she's eating solids now. She said she took 7 steps today, you know, by herself. I think by herself, or I don't know, or with handlebars. Anyway, she took 7 steps. She's in a walking boot now. Her hole's almost completely healed. You know, she's able, like I said, to eat and to drink, and she's her normal, silly self. And yeah, so I think, you know, let people know there is hope out there for anybody who has either gone through this or has had a family member go through this. Don't lose hope at all. There was days I didn't think she'd make it, and it was horrible, but she did, and we call her the miracle. Like this, you know, whole time, like, yeah, I do. I love my mom so much. So anyways, I have to go because you can private message me too, as well, if you have any, you know, comments or just want to talk or anything like that. I am here if you need someone to talk to, if you know of someone who's going through this, or if you're going through this, or anything like that. Just, you know, hit me up. Please like my video. I know it's somewhere down here. And, you know, subscribe and whatnot. And yeah, I hope you guys have a lovely day, and hope you're still able to hear me. And sorry this was so long. Love you guys. Listen to me if you need to, and yeah, bye.